Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4. What is the title of the chapter again? The Process of Creation. Verse number 1. So I'll chant it once and then do the word for word and the translation, and then we'll read the purport. Sutta Uvacha Vayasaka iti vachas tattva nishchayam atmanaha upadharya matim krishne autareya satim vyadat. Sutta Uvacha, Sutta Goswami said, Vayasake of Sukadeva Goswami, iti thus, vachaha speeches, tattva nishchayam that which verifies the truth, atmanaha in the self, upadharya just having realized, matim concentration of the mind, krishna unto Lord Krishna, Autaryehaha, the son of Uttara, satim, chaste, vyadhat, applied. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, after hearing the speeches of Sukadeva Goswami, which were all about the truth of the self, applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word satim is very significant. This means existing and chaste. And both imports are perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. The whole Vedic adventure is to draw one's attention entirely unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna without diversion, as instructed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 15. Fortunately, Maharaj Parikshit had already been attracted to the Lord from the very beginning of his body, in the womb of his mother. In the womb of his mother, he was struck by the Brahmastra atom bomb released by Ashvatthama. But by the grace of the Lord, he was saved from being burnt by the fiery weapon. And since then, the king continuously concentrated his mind upon Lord Krishna, which made him perfectly chaste in devotional service. So, by natural sequence, he was a chaste devotee of the Lord. And when he further heard from Srila Sukadeva Goswami that one should worship the Lord only and no one else, even though full of all desires or desireless, his natural affection for Krishna was strengthened. We have already discussed these topics. To become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna, two things are very much essential. Namely, having a chance to be born in the family of a devotee and having the blessings of a bona fide spiritual master. By the grace of Lord Krishna, Parikshit Maharaj had both opportunities. He was born in a family of such devotees as the Pandavas, and just to continue the dynasty of the Pandavas and show them special favor, the Lord specifically saved Maharaj Parikshit, who later on, by the arrangement of the Lord, was cursed by the boy of a Brahmin and was able to get the association of such a spiritual master as Sukadeva Goswami. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that a fortunate person by the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, achieves the path of devotional service. This was perfectly applicable in the case of Maharaj Parikshit. By way of being born in a family of devotees, he automatically came in touch with Krishna. And after being so contacted, he constantly remembered Krishna. Consequently, Lord Krishna gave the king a further chance for development in devotional service by introducing him to Sukadeva Goswami, a stalwart devotee of the Lord with perfect knowledge in self-realization. And by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master, he was perfectly able to concentrate his chaste mind further upon Lord Krishna as a matter of course. There we have it. There we have it. So the question was raised at the temple yesterday about what happens to a devotee who doesn't finish the course of devotional service. And I said, stay tuned. That's about what we're talking about tomorrow in Shrimad Bhagavatam class. So here we are. And we can begin here by having a look at what Krishna says at the end of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna asks a very pertinent question. In verse number 37, he says, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who, in the beginning, takes to the path of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? And Krishna answers with these verses, Almighty armed, or Krishna, rather, the next point by Arjuna, the next 2 points by Arjuna are, O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he revives his divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi himself, with sincere endeavor, is making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So there it is. That once you're engaged in the practice of yoga, you've made a connection with Krishna. that connection up and until and unless one takes to devotional service, bhakti yoga, is by necessity an indirect connection, because all other forms of yoga except bhakti yoga are in essence impersonal, because the yogi who practices anything other than bhakti yoga wants something for himself by connecting with particular energies of the Lord. But the energies of the Lord are impersonal. They are not a relationship with the source of the energies, the energetic Krishna. Somebody have a question? Or? Can you mute? Yeah, thank you, Ganesh. Sorry. So there's a very interesting purport also at the end of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in verse 28, where Krishna is extolling the path of devotional service above and beyond, as the verse says, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So throughout his writings, Srila Prabhupada is at great pains to make this distinction between all other formularities of practice for advancement spiritually, over and above them all, and transcendental to them all, is the practice of bhakti yoga. We could look a little bit more at the purport of verse 28 and see how Prabhupada describes the process of the practice of study of the Vedas under the guidance of a spiritual master. He says here, the Vedas, not the Bhakti Shastras, the Vedas. He says here, this verse, Vedashu Yagyashu Tapasu Chaiva Danishu Yat Punya Palam Pradishtam Adyeti Tatsavam Idam Vididva Yogi Param Stanam Upayiti Chadyam. This verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the master's order, and if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing brahmacharya. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for some time, at least from age 5 to 20, he becomes a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into household life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country, time, and candidate, discriminating among charity in goodness, in passion, and ignorance, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Then, after retirement from household life, upon accepting the order of vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, and so on. We have a lot of people undergo that austerity all the time. By carrying out, whether they're vanaprastha, brahmachari, sannyas, or whatever, by carrying out the orders of brahmacharya, householder life, vanaprastha, and finally sannyas, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahmajyoti or in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures. Then there's a one-sentence paragraph, very powerful. The beauty of Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada means the practice of Bhakti Yoga. By the beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life. So, therefore, if we go back to what Krishna is saying at the end of the 6th chapter, which we read a few minutes ago, in the last 2 verses, Krishna says to Arjuna, Tapasvibhyo diko yogi, jnanibhyo pi mato dikaha, kamibhyas chadiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavajuna. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Those asceticism, empiricism, and fruitive work are all related to the teachings of the Vedas. But a yogi, one may be a kami and become a kama yogi. One may be a jnani and become a jnana yogi. One may be a dhyani and become a dhyani yogi. So Krishna is saying as yogi is greater than the person who is simply an ascetic, simply who's an empiricist or a fruitive worker. He said, therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Then the famous verse, Yogi nam apisavesham mad gaten antaratmana shradavan bhajate yo mam same yuktatamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Krishna's there's a wry humor in Krishna saying that is my opinion, because if we look through chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we see Krishna's outlining how, from whatever position of life you're in, whether you be a kami, a jnani, or some kind of renunciate, you can segue your life into yoga, and that there are all kinds of opinions amongst sages about what is the best path to take. This is actually exemplified at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, when Parikshit Maharaj is surrounded by so many sages. He's asking, what should one do? What should one do when he's on the threshold of death? And they're giving all sorts of different opinions according to their levels of realization within the framework of yoga that they are practicing. But when Sukadeva Goswami arrives, everybody realizes by his physiognomy that here is a fully realized person, and therefore they agree that he should be the person to answer Sukadeva Goswami's, or rather Parikshit Maharaj's question in an authoritative way, which will benefit all of them, as well as Sukadeva, as well as Maharaj Parikshit. So Then immediately he says to him, now I will recite to you the Shrimad Bhagavatam. And then in there, he puts a very important verse. Itanya vidyavananam ichatam akutobayam yoginam yoginam what is the third line? Yoginam nripa nirnitam harinam anukirtanam. Whether one is a yogi who is self-satisfied, or whether one is a where is that verse? I'll get the translation. Canto 2, chapter 1, which is verse number 11. If you just bear with me for a minute. My memory of these things is not as good as it should be, but we've always got this. Itanya vidyavananam ichatam akutobayam yoginam nripaniyanitam harinam anukirtanam. O king, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. And then later, he says also in the third chapter, which we just finished in verse 10, the famous verse, Akama savakamo va mokshakama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desires, without any material desire, or desirous of liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada says in the purport, as we just read the purport to today's verse, he's dealt with these things in detail in previous purports up to the point where we are now. So you can do a review of that when and if you want to. But the point is that once one comes to the platform of bhakti, all other practices of yoga drop away. And then we see in this 47th verse of the 6th chapter, Krishna says, of all yogis, the one with great faith who abides always in me, thinking of me within himself, and rendering devotional, transcendental, loving devotional service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. All forms of yoga link one to Krishna, but the most intimate connection to Krishna is the personal, direct connection, which is achieved through the practice of bhakti. And then you can review the verses that we just read that Krishna says before that about what happens to the unsuccessful yogi. The unsuccessful bhakti yogi who has not completed the course, but has taken up the course of bhakti yogi, is very much protected by the Lord. As we see, Maharaj Parikshit was very much protected by the Lord. He was going to be destroyed by the Brahmastra of Ashvatthama, but Krishna from within his womb manifested, and Parikshit saw him at that point. Actually, that's the essential meaning of the name Parikshit. Parikshit means the examiner, and all his life he was looking. Where is that person I saw in the womb? Where is that person I saw in the womb? He was examining everyone he met to see if is this the person? Is that the person? And then by the grace of Krishna, he was born into a devotee family. And then by the grace of Krishna, he received the direct instruction of a perfect, a bona fide spiritual master, a perfect bhakti yogi, a fully Krishna conscious devotee of the Lord. So we have our Guru Astakam. And in the last verse, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Yasya Prasada, Nagati. By the grace of Krishna, one gets a spiritual master. And by the grace of the spiritual master, one gets Krishna. And it explains, again, in our purport today, how by coming in although he was a devotee of the Lord, from within the womb, born into a family of devotees, living his whole life as a devotee, when the big questions came, and the biggest question of all is the one he asks at the end of the first canto, what should one do when he is on the threshold of death? Then the perfectly qualified spiritual master appears and answers that question. So two things are described that in the course of the development of devotional service, if we haven't completed the course, then we take birth in a family of devotees. And then we get the direction of a qualified spiritual master. Being born in a qualified family of devotees is also a very liberal concept, because in the teachings of Lord in the lectures on the prayers of Queen Kunti, when Prabhupada is describing in one lecture the 9 processes of devotional service, when he gets to Vandanam, the offering of prayers, he says, just like the Christians and the Muslims, they go to the church and the synagogue, the church and the mosque, and he also mentions the Jews. They go to the synagogue and they offer prayers. Now, I don't want to get into anything about Muslims, Jews, or anything that's been going on in the mundane world. I want to just talk about the point that Prabhupada is making in regard to the practice of devotional service. And he says there that these people, they're going to the temple and they're offering prayers to God. And he says, this is a practice of bhakti. He says, therefore, they are Vaishnavas. He said they might not know so much. They may still be contaminated by impersonalist philosophy. They may be contaminated by low-class Malecha culture, but still they're practicing bhakti. So the point I want to make about that is that I was born in such a family. I was born in a family of Malechas, meat eaters. I was born in a culture where there was intoxication as a natural course of things. Meat eating, gambling, and intoxication were very, very common, still are. Illicit sex was not so common in those days. I remember one time I had to caution one devotee who was talking about how all the people in the West, all the women are prostitutes and everyone's engaged in illicit sex and everyone's deranged by intoxication. I had to pull him up and I said, well, what you're saying is that my mother was a prostitute. And my mother was the chaste wife of one man, never had another man in her life. And when he died, basically she died. So be careful what you say. She was a very pious woman in that regard. And she introduced me to God. She introduced me to prayer. She introduced me to belief in God. So that, as far as I'm concerned, I was born the son of a devotee. Of course, it was a degraded situation. Devotees may fall down from regulative principles, may not even be following the regulative principles, but if they have firm faith in the injunctions of the Lord, then they're devotees, regardless of their external condition. There's a phrase Prabhupada quotes, and in this book, where are we? Disappears into the background. This book, if you can see it all, this Srila Prabhupada Slokas book. It's one of the phrases that is quoted as not having any shastric source, but it's a very important statement that Srila Prabhupada makes at certain points in the Bhagavatam, especially one in relationship to Bhavagrahi. Where is it? Bhavagrahi Janardhan, page 449. Bhavagrahi Janardhan, in regard to the situation with Bali Maharaj, how Bali Maharaj, after he is liberated from the snake ropes of Vasuki, he offers prayers to the Lord, and he says, I was bound up. First of all, when you appeared, I was bound up by the instructions of Sukracharya, and then I was bound up by the snake ropes of Vasuki. And all I could do was, from within the core of my heart, offer my prostrated obeisances. And in regard to that point, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardhan. Bhavagrahi Janardhan. He takes notice. The Lord accepts the essence of a devotee's attitude, the essence of a devotee's attitude, what is in the core of the heart. And this is where surrender must take place. Devotional service, bhakti yoga, can become a ritualistic activity that one performs for profit, adoration, and distinction as a religionist, but within the core of one's heart, one is not surrendered to Krishna, and one is not concentrating on the core activity of devotional service, which is to develop your love for Krishna. Of course, one needs to understand that our regulative principles, the injunctions of the Lord, are there to facilitate the progress of the development of devotional service. They're not there for any other reason, because these activities simply bind us in more and more into the attachment to matter, and therefore the repetition of birth and death, and then we meet with good and evil in the various species of life, as the verse says, 13:22. But in my own case, somehow or another, I was attracted to the yogi principles even without seeking them. And I came in contact with a pure devotee of the Lord, even without seeking him. There's a very interesting extension to this purport in verse 828, where Prabhupada explains something very powerful. The last two paragraphs, he says, the words idam viditva in this verse, which idam viditva in the verse 829 mean, where are we? Sarvam idam viditva, this, knowing this, knowing this. So the words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in the 8th chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now, one should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapter 7 through 12 are the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like coverings in the middle 6 chapters, which are especially coverings for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate to understand Bhagavad Gita, fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all the results of all these activities simply by Krishna consciousness. And that includes all other forms of yoga. So we go back then to the 6th chapter and see how it segues into the 7th. There's no break. There's no break. This is one aspect of Bhagavad Gita that one needs to become familiar with. Although there's chapterization for delineating the specific subjects that are being dealt with, the segue from one chapter to another is something that we need to take note of. And here, Krishna goes straight on. There's no more questions from Arjuna. From, what was it, 38, 39? Was it 38, 39 or 37, 38 and 39? I can never remember. 37, 38 and 39. Arjuna asks these questions. From 40 onwards, Krishna is answering that question and presenting the conclusion about yoga in general. And then the final conclusion that of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Then he goes straight in to chapter 7. Now hear, O son of Prita, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, one can know me in full, free from doubt. So then we have chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which outline the science of Bhakti Yoga. And in the last purport of chapter 8, last paragraph of the purport of the last verse of chapter 8, we have this statement by Srila Prabhupada. One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. Because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. Now, the point here that I wanted to come back to is, on the one hand, you may be born in a family of devotees. On the other hand, you must come in contact with a pure devotee of the Lord. You must hear from a bona fide spiritual master. And if you're on this path of bhakti, including yoga, including bhakti yoga, then for all kinds of reasons of material attachment, one might not complete the course. But one is under Krishna's protection. And no matter how one may have fallen or deviated or gone off the path in any way, or just not made progress due to too much lingering attachment to material life, still, this is all noted by Supersoul. And in your next life, he reawakens these things. But in all of our cases, we weren't looking for somebody like Srila Prabhupada. Our great good fortune was he came to us. He came to us. But we were fortunate in that we we had some faith. We had some faith that there must be a source of pure knowledge. There must be an absolute platform of knowledge. So when one gets the association of a devotee, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly, sorry, I was looking at the clock. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. So that's just from the study of Bhagavad Gita under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. Look at the opulences that we have. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Shrimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, the summary study of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ishopanishad, and then the summary studies of the 10th Canto, Krishna book, then extractions, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the teachings of Lord Kapila, the prayers of Queen Kunti, thousands of hours of lectures by Srila Prabhupada, all of them aimed at bringing us back into our position of loving Krishna, falling in love with Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of Krishna, one gets the spiritual master. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets Krishna. It's all about access. These situations and these personalities in our lives give us access to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada used to explain that the spiritual master is the transparent via medium to Krishna. Transparent via medium to Krishna. His only desire is to reconnect us in our loving relationship with Krishna. So, of course, without becoming complacent and without becoming blasé and conceited about the good fortune of our position, we can at the same time rest assured that we are protected by the mercy of the Lord, protected by all of the potencies of the Lord. And as a result of that, become enthusiastic. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a very interesting word. It means filled with God consciousness, filled with God. Theos means, it comes from the Greek theos, which becomes Deos, which is God. Filled with God. This is enthusiasm. And that enthusiasm is awakened. And along with enthusiasm, there's great gusto, there's great taste, there's great desire to have it. And this is all ignited by hearing from a bona fide spiritual master and remaining in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. It's very interesting, just with Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So the 349th and the 350th verse of the Bhagavad Gita appear in the 9th chapter, verses 13 and 14. Verse 13 is Mahatmanas tumam pada daivim prakritim ashrita bhajantyananya manaso yatva bhutatim avyayam. And the 14th verse, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dhridavataha namasyantas chamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Translation, O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So there you have it. There you have it. Dive deep into this. Dive deep as you can go. If you have to come up for air sometime, do that, but then dive in again. Sometimes you just have to take a little rest. That's part and parcel. That's moderation, as Krishna says. You can't practice yoga if you're not balanced in your work and recreation. But the beauty of devotional service is that there's always recreation. There's always, it's all recreation, actually, recreation. It's always fun. The reason why we lose the taste is because there's still dross in our consciousness due to our long attachment to and involvement with the material energy. But we've all received that knowledge by which nescience is destroyed. And in this regard, there's a very nice sequence of verses in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, from the second half of verse 14 to verse 15, sorry. Second half of verse 15 to verse number 17. And the second half of verse 15 says, embodied beings, that's us, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. But there's good news. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. We are all fortunate recipients of that knowledge. However, taking the metaphor of the sun lighting up the day, you can understand sometimes there are very cloudy days and you can just see the sun as a smudge of abstract, like an abstract painting, a smudge of yellow in the midst of the gray. And that is our situation, because we have not achieved fully what Krishna talks about in verse 17. Tad buddhayas, tadatmanas, tannishtas tat parayana, gacchantya puna avritim jnana nirtuta kalmashaha. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes cleansed, fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and we might not have time in the rest of the lecture, so bear with me, because there's some very important connections to be made here in what I've been saying from various sources. You remember in Prabhupada's description of the progressive study of Bhagavad Gita in the last paragraph of the purport to 828, he says that by advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna. And then in verse 517, Krishna says, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. It doesn't mean if your mind, intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are not completely fixed in the Supreme, that you are not on the path of liberation. You're not proceeding straight yet on the path of liberation. Because what disables us from putting our intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge completely in the Supreme, in Krishna, is anattas, material attachments, abhadrani, useless, dirty things that still remain in the heart. But the study of the Bhagavad Gita under the direction of the devotee, the study of Shrimad Bhagavatam under the direction of the devotee, the study of Chaitanya Charitamrita under the direction of the devotee, as described in the progressive process that Prabhupada is giving in the last paragraph of the purport of the 28th verse of the 8th chapter, is actually also discussed in its philosophical essence in the purport to chapter 4, verse 10, where Prabhupada quotes Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Now, just try to remember the progressive stages that Prabhupada talked about, or you can read about it and refer back to it yourself. In the last purport, last paragraph of the purport of chapter 28, verse 28, and listen to this, that Rupa Goswami says in verses 15 and 16 of chapter 4 of the first canto of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of which Nectar of Devotion is a summary study. Here's what Rupa Goswami says. Adal Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangota Bhajana Kriya Tato Nata Nivriti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchishtata Ata Shaktis Tato Bhavas Tata Prema Bhudanchati Sadakanam Ayam Premna Pradubhave Bhavet Krama. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all attachments. All attachments. All attachments means anattas, designated material desires. Attains steadiness in self-realization and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava in the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. End of quote. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. By the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy, then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. This is the pathway that is open to us in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, for Krishna Consciousness rather, which is the latter-day presentation in the Gaudiya Sampradaya of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Tat Sat. We're at 9:28 already. Just quickly, does anyone have any questions or reflections on anything they've heard today?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Rahul here. Thank you so much for such a wonderful.
One second, Rahul. I'll come to you, but Ajay Sharma. Ajay Sharma, I guess, is very shy because A, I can't see him, and B, he sent a written question. Is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra alone sufficient to attain Bhagavan, even if one knows nothing else? Yes. The word attainment is very important. Attain comes, the root word is tanere in Latin. It means to touch, to come in touch with. And Prabhupada explains that immediately you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you have attained Bhagavan. You are in touch with Bhagavan. The main thing is to keep in touch. So by continuous chanting, one must develop a habit of chanting as much as possible, and not become distracted. Yes, Rahul.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I mean, I was just saying, what a wonderful class. There's so many points, I need to revisit this class a few times and go through, Bhagavad Gita a few times to really, get into a bit better understanding. And, but yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This never ends. You don't just have to go through, it's not that you're going to go through Bhagavad Gita a few times and have a total handle on everything. Yeah. You never stop going through Bhagavad Gita because we've entered the reservoir of the nectar of devotion, the ocean, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of devotion. And the ocean of the nectar of devotion is fathomless and boundless. It just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. We're all just swimming around on the surface here, getting a few mouthfuls and taking a few dives here and there, getting to practice. Actually, by and large, we're still trying to get into the water. It's like we're like little baby turtles that somehow or another have come out of the egg up in the sandhills, made our way through all of this horror of the material world, just like the little turtles, no bigger than the palm of your hand, have to get down through the sand across the beach, and it all happens on a moonlit night. They're being dive bombed by the seagulls. Hundreds and thousands of them don't even make it to the water. Then when they get to the water, they're so small that even a little of water like that will flip them back. And they have to get through all of that. And then they're out into the ocean and they have to dive deep. And then there's all kinds of other creatures in the ocean that they have to deal with. So we are in the material world. And I said last night at the center in the purport to verse 29 of the 5th chapter, Prabhupada says a very important thing about Krishna consciousness, where he says, Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he goes on to say, Krishna consciousness brings one into spiritual life, even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousal of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. And then there's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam that explains that this vast ocean of material suffering that we are in gets shrunk down to the amount of water that you find in the footprint of a calf, and then we actually transcend it. We step across it. That's what transcend means. You ascend, you descend, and you transcend. Sendo comes from the Latin. It means to climb. So ascend means to climb up, descend means to climb down, and transcend means to climb across. And at every stage, Krishna is there to help us, to reciprocate with our sincere endeavor. No matter how we may be bound up in so many ways still in the material world and unable to fully manifest the qualities and practices of a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Lord. But by the slow process of devotional service, climbing on this network of practices and principles that we are given, we will transcend everything in due course of time. And then we will be permanently in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. I think that's it, is it? We have to stop. It's Sunday morning. I can go on if you're all free, but if we all have to get on, I don't have much of a life to get on with. I have no children to deal with. I have no business to manage. I'm simply a vagabond. So,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I have a question.
Ritika Sharma, you can't ask your question unless you turn your camera on. Or you're still in your jammies. No,
I'm just at work.
you're at work.
Yes, Prabhu.
Well, I don't have a job either. So, well,
My question is about why is it important to do chanting on the beads? Like if someone can do chanting like during the whole day, why is it important to do the chanting on the beads?
you can chant all day long without the beads, and that's the goal. Whether you can have your beads with you or not, you can be chanting Hare Krishna at every moment of the day. But in order to take initiation, one has to follow the standard prescribed amount of 16 rounds a day. So the beads are basically like the counter beads. If you just hold the beads in your hand and chant, you're going to chant 108 mantras on one round. 16 rounds is what we're prescribed. On top of that, the beads are made out of holy tulsi wood. So just by touching tulsi and doing this mantra meditation, we're also making advancement. But it's like why do you have to have a little medicine dosage glass to take 15 mils of medicine? Why can't you just judge it? I'll take 15 mils. Oh, no, maybe I didn't. Oh, you have to measure it. So it's fundamentally a way of measuring your dosage, how much of your dosage of holy name you're taking. So that takes, what do we say? Anything between 1.5 to 3 hours of your day, depending on your rate of your pace of chanting. And you don't have to rush it. You have to find the pace that works for you. But when that's done, you can chant continuously the rest of the day. No problem.
I have one more question, Prabhu.
Yes.
So we say like Krishna choose us to be as his devotee. Like if there's so many people in the world and some people don't even know about Krishna consciousness or ISKCON or temple worship, like everything. Even like 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about ISKCON either. But it's Krishna who choose us, or is it our willing? Like it's our will that, oh, we have to do deity worship, or we have to learn, we have to grow in this path. Or should we just leave? Like if Krishna will choose us or he'll help us to grow in this path. So we'll just leave everything on him. We don't have to do anything. Or
No,
we
no.
just have to wait for him to do it.
No. Arjuna, Krishna doesn't say now, Arjuna, you sit down here on the chariot and I'll do everything. He's saying, fight. So we have to act. But the root of your question is, how is it that it's me that is now here and not someone else? First of all, Krishna is super soul within your heart. He's observing everything. And again, we go back to that verse that I mentioned before. It's a very powerful verse to understand something about super soul. Well, in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the 23rd verse, Krishna describes the super soul as being the overseer and the permitter. The overseer and the permitter in regard to everything, in regard to every living entity, each living entity. So having that in mind, listen to this. The Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma, or the supersoul, and he therefore can understand the desires of the individual soul as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desires as he deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. The individual is not therefore omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute independent living entities. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages him to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. One cannot necessarily know that one is desiring Krishna because we have forgotten Krishna. But the idea of God and knowing God is there. So Krishna as God, in his role of supersoul in your heart, sees, oh, you want to know God. You want to know what is the truth of your existence. You want to know, do you have a relationship with God? And so on and so forth. Then he brings you in contact with a devotee. He gives you an opportunity. He chooses you to have that opportunity. Then, according to your desire, you submit yourself to the hearing process to whatever degree you're able to, and then you make a choice. You make a choice. Just because Krishna has selected us, he hasn't selected us any more than he has selected us to have an opportunity to make a choice. So you take a bit of Krishna consciousness into your life, a bit of Krishna conscious practice into your life. But then there comes a time when you have to make a choice. Is this as far as I go? Because you know there's further to go. You make a choice. This is as far as I go. I'm going to have Krishna consciousness to this degree in my life. Or am I just going to take my life into Krishna consciousness? Am I just going to live now Krishna consciously in regard to every aspect of life? So yes, Krishna has chosen us all to have this opportunity. We have to make the choice about how far down that path we're going to go. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you. Such a great class, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
We have to do what Krishna wants us to do. the result. When we say Krishna is the doer, that means the result is in Krishna's hands. The result is in Krishna's hands. Up to the point where, even though you may be following, I read that verse in a class a few days ago, we can just revisit that. Even though you may be following everything, you may be doing everything perfectly, and so on and so forth, listen to this. Nayamatma pravachanena labhya na medaya na bahuna shutena yam evaisha vrinutitena labhyas tashaisha atma vrinute tanum swam. The Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his form. So ultimately, everything is based upon the will of the Lord, the supreme desire of the Lord. Therefore, we need to understand the concept of causeless mercy and take advantage of it with deep understanding and gratitude. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Now, I notice 18 out of 19 people are still on, so we're 8:45. Do we want to stop here, or are there any more questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My name is Sonia, and I have a question.
Can I see you, Sonny, apart from your photograph here?
Yes, you can, Prabhu.
You're in San Francisco too.
Yes, I am.
Are you literally in San Francisco?
No, I'm in Australia. Prabhu, as you have mentioned just now, just to keep going and to do your the daily routine, just how Krishna was advising Arjuna to fight. I just wanted to ask you, in your days, when you were in your early days, how did you manage to choose the right path? Not only Krishna consciousness, but in family wise, in career wise. How do you choose? Because it's such a fine line as to choosing it, but making the right choices and then ending up in Krishna's path. How do you do that?
Ending up in what?
With Krishna's decisions, with Krishna's plan.
With Krishna's divisions? Krishna's plan? Okay.
Sorry, Prabhu.
Bhagavad Gita?
No, by ending with Krishna's divine plan for you. How do you make those choices?
Well, there's a it's about surrender to Krishna. In verses 57 and 58 of the 18th chapter. And I advise everybody to learn these verses, print them out, laminate them, frame them, and keep them on the wall. Chaitasa savakamani mai sanyasya matpara buddhi yogam upashricha machchita satatam bhava. Machchita savadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. Ata chetvam ahankaran nashoshasi vinakshasi. In all activities, just depend upon me, work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Read those verses and study the purports very carefully. And then go back to the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita verses 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and look at them very closely. I'll just read them quickly. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, even while you're fighting the battle of Kurukshetra, what to speak of whatever we're doing in our own lives. He's talking to Arjuna here. And in the previous verse, verse 7, he says, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties. Mama nushmara yujyacha. You should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties. He could have said, yudya mama anutsmaracha, or he could have changed the syntax there. But he says anushmara before he says yoga, or before he says yudya, fight. He says, you think of me and fight. He doesn't say fight and think of me. He says, you think of me. And this is repeated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Think of me, engage your mind in thinking of me. And then Krishna takes charge of your life and you begin to see very clearly the hand of the Lord at work in your life. And you become aware that Krishna is prompting you from within to do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. And then we have, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the last two of the Chatusloki verses, very, very important verses, verses 10 and 11 of the 10th chapter, which state, Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yena mam upayanti te, Tesham ivanukam patam, aham agyana jam tamaha. Nashayam yatmavavasto jnana deepena basvata. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. One has to develop contact with Supersoul. Supersoul is in the heart and is manifest through the presence of the spiritual master. So Krishna prompts from within the heart, and the spiritual master confirms it from outside, or says, well, no, actually, this is not Krishna that's prompting you. This is your material desires that are prompting you. This is Maya. And learning to see the distinction is something that we have to become very proficient at ourselves, because the spiritual master is not always there to instruct you on a daily basis. You have to take the instructions and internalize them and learn to see, oh, this is the voice of Maya, this is the voice of Krishna. It's a practice. These things are practice. It's all about practice. Practice, 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 and put progress over perfection. And you'll make and then you'll make progress.
That's great advice, Prabhu. Thank you for that. I didn't quite get the first one. Which chapter was that in?
Chapter 18, verses 57 and 58.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. All right. What's the time? What's the time? Shall we go till 9? We've got 8 minutes. If there's anything else, otherwise we'll stop here. you're all pretty keen. You're all still on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
By Dabi, David.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Amazing, amazing, amazing class. So many points, like Rahul Prabhu said, and you again reiterated that we have to keep going on deeper, deeper, and deeper. I was thinking that how, when we read or when we hear the songs of the acharyas, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the advanced devotees, they already have Krishna Prem. They already have love for Krishna. Yet, the way they present themselves, the way it's not like they are imitating or they are displaying an emotion. They are feeling like that they don't have enough love. So, what is that nature of that Krishna Prem? That is it that the more you have, the more you want, or whatever you have, it's not enough?
I'm not qualified to answer that question. In this regard, I think Prabhupada would say, best thing is you chant Hare Krishna, you go back to Godhead, you meet Srila Bhakti Vinod in his original form, and ask him.
Right.
In the meantime, we can get a sense of the humility of the greatest souls. It's Dainya is the thing that is described in the Bhagavatam, Srīmad, what is it? Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, the Dainya of the Paramahamsa, devotee of the Lord. So their humility is so deep and profound. Just like with Yudhishthira, he went looking to see who was the most humble person, and everywhere he went, he met kings, and he thought these people are all more humble than me, but he was the most humble. This is into the inconceivable reaches of something that I can't honestly comment on, being still very much a puffed up, proud person. Humility is it's the most it's the crown jewel of the devotional jewels that a devotee may wear. Humility, and Krishna says in the 13th chapter, when he lists 20 elements of knowledge, verses 8 to 12, the first thing is humility. And then Lord Chaitanya pushes that very forcefully home when he says that one must chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. Humble humility has, again, to be cultivated by practice. And it naturally develops also by the stripping away of pride, because humility is not something, again, it's not a quality of the soul that has, like we were saying last night about prema, it's not something that has to be injected or infused or osmoted into us. The pure soul is one of the qualities is humble. Humility is a natural quality. It becomes covered by pride. Remove the pride and the natural humility is there. And so the potency of the holy name is something that we can take advantage of or submit ourselves to. The holy name destroys all of the kalmashanashana, all of the dirtiness that's accumulated within us due to our long association with the material energy, especially within this age of Kali. the doubtless and fearless way for all. Akuto Bayam. The doubtless and fearless way for all is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, which cleanses the heart. And that is equated by Sukadeva Goswami. Chanting the holy name of the Lord is non-different from chanting Shrimad Bhagavatam. Chanting Shrimad Bhagavatam is non-different from chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no difference between the two, but Lord Chaitanya specifically recommends chanting the holy name of the Lord. And power of the holy name to purify our consciousness and bring us back to our natural, original nature is inconceivable. But again, back to like with Sonia, it's a gradual process, a gradual proportionate process. And like I said, don't give up, always show up, stay in the practice, and everything will come. Realization and understanding will always come. Because one's taste for the holy name and hearing in relationship to the holy name, hearing about Krishna, becomes so powerful and so strong that Sutta Goswami in his initial presentation about Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, Divinity and Divine Service, he says, Shrindvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabhadrani Vidu Noti Suritsata. That if one is an honest devotee, Krishna is in the heart. You can't fudge it. You can't fool Krishna. But if you're an honest devotee, and the honest devotee means, yes, I've got anatas, I'm not pure, I'm contaminated, my consciousness is contaminated. But if you develop a taste for hearing these messages of the Lord, then the verse says Krishna is the Paramatma, the supersoul within the heart of every living entity. And he cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the honest devotee who has developed an urge to hear his messages. So Krishna reciprocates and takes away the dirty things, and the natural qualities emerge. They're there. They're just covered. They're there within everyone. They're just covered. The uncovering process is vidunoti. Vidunoti, I think I talked about this in the previous class, wasn't it? The vidunoti, to cleanse by sound. All of the dirty things in the heart will vanish by this hearing process, hearing and chanting, over and over and over. And people think, well, that's boring. Just do it over and over again. But we do so many things that become routine. We do them over and over again. Life is full of repetition. So taking up this repetition as a regular practice in one's life has inconceivable and immeasurable benefits for you. So therefore, don't give up. Keep showing it. And one thing will lead to another. Things that we don't necessarily have a comprehension or an understanding of now will become clearer as time goes by. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. We've gone past 9. Panchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasindo Bhaivacha
Patitanam Pavanebhyo
Avanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Mr. Surrender Balabaji,
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
please reveal yourself unto me. Haribo!
Hare Krishna.
Sundarananda Prabhu, how are you?
You can see me smiling to see you.
Well, it's Koshira Kosho, as they say in Japanese.
Yeah.
Same back to you. Koshira Kosho.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Nice class, and my obeisances to Sarva Mangala Mataji.
Well, obeisances to your good wife as well.
How long are you staying in our country or in this country?
I leave on the 1st of February.
Okay, then we might catch up because when Sakyai Prabhu comes back from India, then I'll come and see him.
Yeah, well, I'm in Brisbane at the moment. I'm in Brisbane till I have to go to Sydney on the 13th of January. Saki Roy's back on the 6th, so there's a week there.
Yeah.
And then I'm back in Brisbane from the 22nd of January until I leave on the 1st of February.
Okay, well, I'll keep those dates in mind when I'm planning my travel. And everything.
Okay. Look forward to seeing you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. When you come to Sydney, give me a call.
Well, it's a pretty hectic schedule. I will give you a call, but it'll be tight.
That's okay. I can come and see you wherever you are, or giving a class or something. I can come.
Okay. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. May the Lord bless you all and keep you from all harm. And as the old saying goes, happy trails until we meet again. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Prabhu.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
I end the class now, Prabhu.